Hey everybody, it's Greg. Hope that you're staying safe and healthy. Listen everybody, real talk. We know that it's a little bit crazy out there, and sometimes you gotta fight crazy with crazy. Maybe you're doing your Zoom calls without any pants on. Maybe you're having a personal pizza for breakfast. It's fine. I know I did, and I feel ashamed. What I don't feel ashamed about is our decision to mix up the format on this episode a little bit. Zach and I decided it might be fun to do basically an extended version of the Matchmaker segment where we take in a single character and then rapid fire off a bunch of different ideas for characters that we thought might be fun to hook them up with. We had a really good time. Hopefully you guys did too. We actually did this live on Twitch. The Pack Theater has been really nice in letting us set up our show there for the time being, and they've been extremely good to us, so we're trying to be good to them. We might reference Twitch or being in the chat, which obviously you can't do because podcasts are a non-interactive medium for the time being. But if you want to get in on the fun, then we're usually broadcasting Wednesday nights at 8, that is Pacific time, over on the Pack Theater Twitch channel. You can just go ahead and Google it, it'll pop right up. Anyways, again, hope you guys are staying safe and enjoy the episode. From the darkest corners of Tumblr comes a podcast where we take two of your favorite fictional characters, get them together, and we ask, do we ship it? Hey guys, welcome back to another live edition of Ships in the Night. I'm Zach Wilson. That's Greg Goodness over there. And I just want to say, guys, thank you for joining us on what we found out today is as of this moment, the 69th ranked podcast comedy fiction category in all of Canada. And that is an accomplishment that I can get behind.
Yeah, guys, thank you very much. Make sure that you don't add any new listeners into the rotation because we have a pretty sweet thing going on right now, and we don't want to ruin that by getting any more listeners. So definitely don't share this with your friends. Don't tell anyone about it. Do not rate, review, subscribe. Just we need to maintain status quo above all else.
And we're not the only ones here because we always have a guest, and we have a fantastic guest on today's show, and I don't want to leave her off camera because there are cameras in this episode version of the show. It's Meredith Paul. Meredith, thank you so much for joining us. A host, a director for online video. Meredith, I'm so excited we're going to get super weird on today's episode. How are you feeling? Are you ready to get weird?
Oh, I am so ready to get weird. I've been in my house for months. So, yeah.
We're all weird, whether we want to be or not right now. This is the default mode.
I'm ready.
I have lost track of time, space, space-time, what is considered a reasonable thing for an adult human being to do. I don't know anymore. It's just, I went out the window. And I didn't know very well to begin with. So that's a statement. But let's...
Oh, yeah.
But on today's episode, here's how we're going to do things today. Because as we keep doing Ships Live, we're going to keep experimenting. Today, we have each brought in a single from fiction that we believe needs to find some love, or think we could just find some really fascinating cross-fandom love for. And then we're going to break it down. And you guys, if you're joining us live in the chat, please let us know who you're thinking, because we need to find the perfect matches for these people. And I want to kick it off. Meredith, you brought in somebody that I think absolutely needs to find some fantastic, almost magical love, I'd say. Who are you? Who do you have that you think needs a good, loving relationship?
Look, I think we all need good, loving relationships, but I do think that Neville Longbottom is an extremely underrated hero and deserves to find love. And he would be an amazing partner.
Neville would be an amazing partner. Neville's just like a good guy, which I don't feel like you see enough in fiction these days. Like, he's just like a good person. He's not a dick to people constantly. He's a good person. Do you think he needs...
Yes.
Whoa, Greg.
You don't what?
No. I wasn't gonna argue the fact that he's a good person, that he's a good wizard.
Greg coming in here with a hot take.
I just think we can't ignore the fact, total nerd. He may be a good nerd. He's a very good nerd, but he's a huge total nerd, and that is going to be challenging for some people, I think.
You're right. You're right about that, but you need to make the distinction between, are we talking about hot Neville or not?
That's true. That does change things up quite a bit if it's hot Neville or if it's nerd Neville.
I think it's gonna just be. I think, look, to me, they're one and the same. I love, like, the books are great, but I think what the movies taught us is that by the end of the books, like after we get through book 7, even in the book lore, Neville went and just started getting ripped. Like at 18, he just started working out. Like he's just like, you know what? I don't want to be. He's one of those guys who was really nerdy and fat in high school, and then he just decided at some point, I want to get cut, and he started going to the gym.
Yeah.
Every
He's
day.
kind of a Joe Rogan listener of sorts.
Oh no! Don't put Neville in with those guys.
Hey, don't besmirch the Joe Rogan listeners.
See something, say something. That's what I always say.
I do like this fiction, though, that Neville was like, you know what? I'm sick of this. I have listened to Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I am going to make some changes in my life. I've listened to the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and God damn it, I'm starting a new regimen today. So, like, instead of Eye of Newt, he's mixing in whey protein into all of his potions. Yeah. He is just hitting the gym hard. And we get, like, a Rocky-esque, which the movie should have had, just a Rocky-esque sequence of nerd Neville transforming into hot Neville.
And he ends up as a herbology professor. Don't forget that for a dingle-dangle second.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
That's a highly coveted position.
So, okay, I can see this, that Neville has gone out and he has done some massive gains, right? He is absolutely on keto. He is peeing on those little strips nonstop to make sure that he is in the zone 24/7. And then he's just like, you know what? Nerd Neville no more. I'm ready to go out and I'm ready to get some.
The question is, who is the right match for Neville? Like, who should we be looking to? Do we want to find him another nerd? Or do we want to find him somebody to take him out of that more and get him out more, maybe more excited, more into the world?
I could see it going to... Okay.
Well, I'll throw out there what Nomad Foy, when we posted this to Twitter, Nomad Foy, well, thank you so much for constantly listening to the show, suggested Poison Ivy as a potential match for Neville Longbottom. They both love plants. Poison Ivy would be down for the herbology stuff, and she, in the animated fiction, as Nomad Foy points out, she did just date Kite Man, so maybe maybe she's
so you're
open.
saying she has low standards already?
How dare you, sir?
Wait, Greg, what was gonna be your theory about his preferences before I think about this match?
You know what? We can circle back to that because what this did remind me of is that in Batman and Robin, which is, of course, the best Batman movie out of all of them, we actually do get a transformation sequence from Poison Ivy where she starts off as a super nerd in a lab, and then thanks to a concoction of chemicals, she literally transforms into a hot person. So
right.
I mean, that's most versions of Poison Ivy. She started as a botanist. She's a doctor.
But this literally like commits it to film. You know what I'm saying? So I think that there's a nice marriage in here where you could actually have Uma Thurman, as it were. Like she is falling into the vat of chemicals, or rather being like sunken into the ground, if I remember that movie correctly. While Neville is just fucking making sick gains and doing P90X nonstop.
Yeah.
And he's just cutting in between them as they're both getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And we know, the audience knows that, like, ooh, these two are destined for love.
Right. And I also could see while their hotness matches up, in sort of a sub-dom relationship where Neville is very submissive. He does the housework. He takes care of the children. And Poison Ivy is sort of telling him what to do, telling him what's what, telling him, like, this is where we're going to go for dinner. And he's like, yes, honey. So I think in that way they would gel.
I love that. Neville has committed so hard to being an alpha male, but like that's now his secret shame is that he loves to be bossed around.
Right, exactly.
Much like all Joe Rogan listeners, they secretly love to be. No, God. Oh, I'm gonna get doxxed. Okay.
I didn't say anything.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm feeling super in on this ship so far, but I want to keep thinking because I feel like there might be some other possibilities out there. Because my brain went to, well, what is the next logical step from being like in love with plants? It's being in love with just like a plant, maybe one where the last name is straight up plant. I'm talking about Piranha Plant from Super Mario Brothers and Super Smash Brothers.
Okay, Super Smash Brothers makes a lot more sense because at least then you have a mobile being. Someone
It's a
who's capable
sentient fighting plant, Greg. It thinks,
Yeah.
it moves, it can throw bombs at you, it can use a baseball bat.
Yeah, and I can certainly see like there's maybe a universe where Dumbledore's like, listen, we've killed a lot of wizards going up against he who shall not be named. We got to start recruiting some ultimate fighters.
Yeah, I mean, and don't we all, on some level, want to have sex with our hobbies?
I think that you look. We're on the channel for the Pack Theater, a comedy community, and I think I can safely say that 99% of Pack Theater people would have sex with the Pack were the opportunity presented to them. Not looking at anyone in particular. I'm looking at all of you in particular. You know who you are. So I can see that. Greg, what do you think?
So what, like these two? Okay, so I'm not gonna lie, I was definitely cheating on this one. I just Googled a list of fictional magic users, and something that kind of jumped out at me when I was scrolling down this list, got about halfway through. You guys remember how Mickey Mouse uses magic? Specifically in
like
the
in Fantasia?
SNES game. He uses it in Fantasia. He uses it in the SNES video game, The Magical Quest, starring Mickey Mouse. So not only do you have someone who is a magic user, so he understands that world, but also, like, can you think of a more prototypical nerd come, like, hero save the day than Mickey Mouse? That is every single one of his cartoons is him starting off like, oh, gosh, I'm just a little bit bumbly, but here I go to save the day. Like, I can totally see these two vibing on each other's energy. Really.
I agree. I could
Neville
see Neville
and
just
Mickey
being into
Mouse.
somebody who wears gloves also. See that for
Neville's a
him.
neat freak. He really appreciates
Yeah.
it. Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, gosh, did you have anyone in mind specifically? I know that's a little bit cheating because you were also the one who brought him in, but let's hear what you got.
Yes. Do you guys remember? Did you guys watch Twilight?
I am familiar with the series.
Okay.
Don't make us admit it.
Like, I think to get this, you have to be really into Twilight. Do you remember Anna Kendrick's character from Twilight?
I'm gonna Google it furiously. But
She's
please,
basically
Walk us
like
through this character.
a very annoying. She's a very annoying popular girl, and she's very funny, and she's always like pissed that Bella got like into the Edward zone because she wanted to be with him because he's like hot. And I feel like I could see her for the similar reason as what I said about the sub-dom relationship, really latching onto hot Neville and sort of taking him under her wing and then making him like her guy.
oh my God, a pure jealousy move. She goes to Kristen Stewart, is like, you have a vampire? That's cool. I have a wizard. He's from royalty.
Yes, exactly.
And that also does kind of fuel into the whole like Neville transformation thing, where he's like, look, I don't care if this relationship is built on spite. Like, at least it's something. I just gotta get one out of the gate. Sure, you're my girlfriend. I don't care if you hate me.
All right.
I really like that dynamic. I'm not gonna lie. I think between the two, the two that are leading me right now is either Poison Ivy or Anna Kendrick from Twilight. So I don't know, guys. What are you thinking?
I gotta say, I want to lean into Poison Ivy because like there's something there about somebody who they both like, specifically just like falling for somebody who shares your passion in life, and I think that's what it is. They're both they're both like whatever their world's equivalent of a doctor is. Like Neville would be have a doctorate in herbology if that such a thing existed in the wizarding world. So they both like have studied plants extensively and use magic to manipulate them. I think that just leads to so many late night talks where they're just like falling in bed in each other's arms talking about plants.
Yeah,
Meredith, what
agree.
are you thinking?
I'm leaning toward Poison Ivy for a very similar reason. I think when I think of, everyone that I've loved in my life, it always comes from a shared interest, from things that you have in common, you can bond over. So I do think that the plants would be a good place for them to start.
Okay.
And look, I think, granted, Poison Ivy is pretty definitively evil, at least in like the most simplified version of the Batman lore. I swear to God, Zach, I can see you like the gears turning in your head. Do not make this more complicated than it needs to be.
She is an anti-hero, sir. She's only a evil if you think it's evil to try to save the planet.
Well, look.
Wow. Do you think it's evil to save the planet?
I do. I want the world to burn.
This is specifically a point of contention in the recent Harley Quinn animated series, and that's why it's fresh in my head. And they handle it so brilliantly.
Well, again, coming from the only source material that matters, the Batman and Robin movie, I know that Uma Thurman fucking hates old white dudes. That's what she hates more than anything else in the world. It doesn't matter like whether it's a side of good or evil. She's like old white dudes. And is there an older, whiter dude than Voldemort? He is translucent. So she would definitely be like, look, I don't know what side I'm fighting on in this war, but as long as I'm going up against he who must not be named, this crusty old relic of the patriarchy, yeah, I'm in. I'll fight.
Okay, I'm on board.
Great. Let's figure out their story. I want to know how these two's story goes. How do they meet? Do they meet in the battle over Voldemort? Is that where the meet cute is? Is in the background of the Battle of Hogwarts, Poison Ivy was using her powers to help destroy the Death Eaters? Is that what we're saying here?
Yeah, again, it's still Dumbledore coming in and being like, Jesus, we have killed so many young wizards in this battle. We need to start recruiting people from other walks of life.
Oh, so maybe
we'll bring them in.
I think maybe during the battle, both of them noticed, like, she happened to be there. Yeah, he brought her in. He was like, we got to get Soups in here now. Need backups. And they both noticed that the ground was being raised and all these precious botany samples were being destroyed. And then they both, they both picked up a little sample, and then their hands touched together.
It's the classic hand touch fall in love move. I mean, it's a staple here at Ships in the Night. I see that
while
one.
Wizards are just disintegrating all around them. You
and
just
they don't
hear,
know.
yeah.
And I could totally, and then like, look, the moment, and like, there's not necessarily a romantic tension there until that moment where Neville picks up the sword of Gryffindor and just like kills that snake. Like, I think that something got awakened for Poison Ivy.
Oh my gosh, because she doesn't like other green things.
Yeah.
She wants to be the only green thing in the room.
I didn't see it as much as like I hate snakes as more of a like that was
snakes.
a hot like action hero move.
It was hot to her because she was like, that snake's trying to steal my thunder. I'm the green one with the red hair, not you.
Listen, Snake, we're both wearing the same thing. One of us needs to go home and change.
Exactly.
And you know that Snake just isn't going to listen. It's been very naughty throughout the entirety of the Harry Potter series.
And
also, I think just as a nice bonus, she would probably hate the biblical allusions to all of it, too. Of being like, listen, this snake coming in and trying to mess with femininity in my Eden's garden? I don't think so. Mama, taking it back.
Mama, this one's for the ladies.
All right, so these two...
That would be a line in Batman and Robin, is Uma Thurman saying, this one's for the ladies.
We've come full circle.
Why don't you slither up to me, Neville?
Oh, no.
But after the Battle of Hogwarts, these two, I think they're just like bonding as they like try to like fix up the plants. Maybe it's the thing where Neville, once they're out of like, he's out of school, that he's like traveling for his studies, and they just become like a traveling duo, like categorizing. Is that what you call it when you go like find plant samples and put them in a book? And they just like they travel the world finding plants and saving and like becoming eco-terrorists with magical plants.
Okay, that's the angle that I like.
That's a turn. I
love
it.
Poison Ivy radicalizes Neville Longbottom.
And Neville's like, I don't really want to do this, but then she's like, you'll do it, and he's like, ooh, okay, yeah, whatever you say.
Well,
I will.
I think it becomes a thing where he's like, I don't know if this is right. And she's like, well, you were totally fine with like destroying a government when it was run by somebody who was going to kill all the wizards, right? And he's like, well, yeah, I mean, Voldemort was super evil. She's like, well, what do you call a politician who's going to wipe out all of plant life on the earth by using too much carbon emissions? I think it's the same thing, and we got to kill him. And Neville's like, well, Neville can't argue with that logic. And frankly, I don't know that he has the backbone to do it. So
I think it's like the kind of thing too, where like she goes in and she has like a very like heavy hand and she's like killing people or whatever, blah, 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 blowing shit up. And then when she's not looking, he's got his wand and he's like, sorry. And he's like fixing stuff and he's like, oh, let me help you. And he's like making cuts go away. But then if she looks, he's like, I'm a bad guy too.
Terribly sorry about this little tiff that we're having. Oh dear. Oh bother. He's still extremely British throughout all of this.
I forgot he was British, honestly.
And maybe that's like a thing where like Poison Ivy doesn't pick up on that he's like maybe a little bit slower than everyone else because he's got that British accent that like, look, we all can acknowledge that when you speak in a British accent, it makes you sound just a little bit smarter. Assuming you're doing a good British accent and not whatever I just did.
Yeah, nobody cares that he's an eco-terrorist because he just sounds so befuddled and charming.
Okay, so here's my question for these two. It's the big one. Like, does it last? Like, do these two make it? I don't know. Meredith, what do you think? Do Poison Ivy and Neville Longbottom make it long term?
In this economy? I don't know. What is making it anymore, right? Like, I don't know. But maybe? What do you qualify? They die together like the Notebook?
I mean, we just want to know how long it lasts. Like, do these two, like, do they last into old age? Maybe, because I don't see this as like a fling for either one of them. I don't think that this is like something that they're just gonna like be like, well, that was a fun month, bye. I think this
Right,
is
I agree.
this is if they make it past the Neville becoming an eco-terrorist phase. I think these two last for years, if not decades.
I agree. I think they have little baby mandrakes together.
Yeah, that's their babies. They're like, we're having a baby, and then it's just like them holding a potted plant on a Christmas card.
And their family is like, stop doing this. We get excited every time.
And the thing is, I think Neville's totally fine with like her going off on her own while he's like teaching at Hogwarts. Like he has enough to keep him busy. Like he's just like he's teaching, and during the teaching months, she goes off and fights Batman, and tries to tear Batman apart.
Yeah, I think when she leaves, he's like, and then like when she comes back, he's like, I'm so happy to see you.
But it is I think that's what it is. Like the fact that they have that time apart is the key to this relationship lasting so long. Is like he goes away for like months and months out of the year to teach, but that gives them time apart to like be themselves and like focus on teaching and kids, and she can focus on killing bat-based superheroes.
And she has like side chicks.
I dig it. Oh, you think she has side chicks?
For sure.
She's dating Harley on the side? Ooh.
Yeah.
Is Neville
She does whatever she wants.
Is Neville cool with that though?
Neville is like, whatever gives me these precious months by myself.
He's not even into it. He's just like, listen, this is a means to an end, whatever it takes.
Yeah, he's like, I don't care. Just do your thing. Leave me alone for 6 months.
Neville is fine with being cucked by Harley Quinn. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, he doesn't care.
It's not even sexual for him. He just needs a moment of peace.
Yeah.
Well, we got to ask that question. Do we ship it? Do you want it to happen? Do you not want it to happen? Are you happy about it? Greg, let's start with you.
Yeah, I ship it. I think that these two have a interesting and dynamic relationship, an unconventional but loving relationship, until they both die trying to blow up a oil rig off the coast of Costa Rica. Yeah, I think it works.
Meredith, what do you think? Do you ship it?
Yeah, I think I do ship it. And, you know, like Gwyneth Paltrow would say, we're living in an age of unconventional relationships, and this is what works for them. So who am I to judge?
Yep, I think, and I love just saying sentences like that. Yes, I ship it. I want Neville Longbottom to fuck Poison Ivy, and then they live happily ever after.
Hey, make love.
Thank you.
Oh, no. We're talking about hot Neville here, Greg. They're
That's
fucking.
true. He's definitely ramrodding her on the side of the bed.
Granted, I think I said it backwards. Poison Ivy is fucking Neville Longbottom. I don't know that Neville Longbottom is fucking Poison Ivy, but they're all having a good time, is the point.
I want your seed.
Oh, boy.
Get it? Because they're plant people.
Yes, thank you. I'm glad that you appreciate it, even if Zach and the rest of the world didn't.
I'm on your side.
Well, we got to move on because we've got other people to ship on tonight's episode. Greg, I think we should move on over to your guy. Because it's not that far of a leap from Neville. It's a little like skip over from Neville. And I want you to tell us about this gentleman, this beautiful soul of a human being. Who is it that you want to find love for?
So I think that, we've talked a lot about Star Wars on this program, but we've never really talked about the central hero, the most important character in the Star Wars universe. And that is Jack Porkins, who you may remember being entirely defined by his death in the Battle of the Death Star, when he insists that he can handle it when his ship is malfunctioning. And literally, as his ship is being blown up and he is being disintegrated in the cold vacuum of his space, his last words are, "I'm fine."
Overconfident Porkins.
I really think that we need to, like, look, Porkins, we need to find someone who's going to teach him that, like, look, it's okay to not be fine. It's okay to say that you need to pull up and you need to get out of that battle. Like, you don't need to be a wallflower and shrink away from the rest of the world. Express yourself. You know? So if you guys have any suggestions, I would be very keen to know.
Just something popped in my mind when you were saying that. Have you guys seen First Wives Club recently?
I'm Googling it furiously right now.
Walk us through it.
First Wives Club. You ever saw it? It's the best movie ever. Basically, Goldie Hawn, Bette Midler.
Oh yes, I do.
Diane Keaton, freaking Stockard Channing. Is that her name? They all are like friends from college, and I don't know why I'm screaming. I'm sorry. I like this movie a lot.
You're really passionate about First Wives Club. I get it.
It's like really a good movie. They all are friends from college, and they all get married to like really rich guys, and they lose touch. And then when they're like 50-ish, their husbands like all leave them for different reasons. And
which one do you want to set up with Porkins?
The one, Diane Keaton's husband leaves her for his therapist, and the therapist is who I want to set up with Porkins, because they're both minor characters. Porkins needs a therapist, and she's very sexy. It would be a great match.
That is not the direction that I thought you were going to go with that. I assume that you were like, well, it's about these women like coming into their own and finding out their own worth, and I think that they can impart messages. No, you want to set them up with the therapist.
Look, he's on death's doorstep already. It doesn't matter if he's with, a husband-stealing therapist. It's good for him.
You know what?
Okay, go ahead.
Someone who is confident enough to go in and say, like, you know what? I know it's unethical, but I know what I want. I know what I need. I'm going to steal my client as a lover from his wife. Like, Porkins would never have the wherewithal to do that. So he could probably learn a thing about asserting his needs from this as of yet unnamed therapist.
It's interesting.
I forgot her name, to be honest.
I also was going to go the therapist route. Because I was thinking, like, he needs somebody who understands like mental health. Because look, Porkins has been through the ringer. His nickname, his call sign is Porkins because he's overweight. How dare you, Rebel Alliance pilots? How dare you?
We're going to get so many fucking Twitter mentions that are like, well, actually, he was called Porkins because he traded pork on the Rebel Alliance.
No,
like,
I don't care what after the fact, like, just fix you think you came up with. What retconning of the name Porkins you did. They called him Porkins when they shot that movie because he was the overweight pilot. But he needs somebody to give him back his confidence because he needs somebody who is so confident in themselves that it's just going to bring him up. And that's why I was thinking about Lilith Crane from Frasier.
Ooh.
Wow. Okay. Someone who has gone to wits with the fucking best and most greatest minds that Seattle has to offer.
Mm-hmm.
But who would also just like force him to deal with his issues and get better. Like, Lilith will make him be a better person. He won't even have a choice about it. He's just going to have to be better.
Lilith is Frasier's wife, correct? Or ex-wife?
Ex-wife, yes.
I'm not confusing it with Niles.
Yes, Frasier's baby daddy, not Maris.
That's right. Frasier is an absentee father. I forgot about that.
We always do.
He's the fucking voice of Seattle, like giving out advice on how you should live your life. Meanwhile, it's like, yes, and my son, who appeared all of 5 times throughout our 700 episode run. What a garbage bag.
And then his son appeared in Basketball.
The actor or the character?
The actor.
Yeah, in Basketball, they were like, yeah, this is Frasier's son.
But I like
Let's take about 5 minutes to set this up.
I like to think that they're the same character because that's a fun shared universe.
That would be great. Yeah, I agree.
Anyway, Greg, who are you thinking for Porkins? Like, we've got 2 therapists on the block right now.
Man, I mean, I really tipped my hand now that I went to the psychology of why I think any one of the first wives of the First Wives Club would be great. But, something that popped out to me is, someone who, again, is maybe a little bit on the not conventionally attractive weight side of things. Someone who is maybe in a rut in their life. And gosh dang it, they just need to break out. Have any of you seen Fried Green Tomatoes recently?
Yeah. Not recently, but I've seen it.
Kathy Bates's character in Fried Green Tomatoes is just a prime character for someone who is able to like come into their own. And what I remember most about that movie, or at least that one scene, and God, I hope I'm attributing this to the correct character, is at one point, Kathy Bates is in her home, and she is just taking a goddamn sledgehammer to her walls inside the house.
Hell yeah.
And her husband comes home and is like, what's going on? And she says, basically, baby, you never paid attention to me, and you're paying attention to me now.
Hell yeah.
I can imagine Kathy Bates in a TIE fighter just going down the fucking chute of the Death Star, coming in with a giant sledgehammer of like, listen, Darth Vader, you haven't been paying attention to me? Well, you're paying attention to me now. Throws the sledgehammer into the exhaust port, boom. And she can save her lover, Porkins. And they can
Or
have
is she the reason he died?
Porkins died so that Kathy Bates may live. Yes, absolutely.
I mean, I'm on board with the idea that she was there, but what was she doing?
Asserting herself, learning how to live, baby.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, exactly.
She's just going like, you're paying attention to me now. He's like, yes, fine, I'm... Okay, so we're looking at Kathy Bates from Fried Green Tomatoes, Lilith Crane, and the unnamed therapist from the First Wives Club. We also got from Facebook, former guest of the show, Robert Clark Chan, suggested, and I do not have context for this. Wrestler Awesome Kong.
Awesome Kong?
His name?
I'm looking it up.
Kong, like King Kong, but it's Awesome Kong. And I at first I thought like maybe he's like one of Donkey Kong's like brothers, because that could have been a thing. I don't know. There must be an Awesome Kong. There's a Diddy Kong. There's a Grandpa Kong. There's a Cool Kong. There's all kinds of Kongs. But no, that's not who we're talking about here. Awesome Kong is I believe a female wrestler, because I'm looking this up right now, because the comment came in as we went live, who fought in Glow, and or was in Glow rather. I don't know. What do you guys think? I'm unfortunately not familiar with the character.
You know what? Like, a wrestler may be a really fucking good match for him, because again, if this is, he's clearly like not super active, Porkins. I mean, he's very active in the cockpit of a TIE fighter, sure, but like it doesn't really get out there. I think I'm looking at Kong like Awesome Kong is a solid built woman, but she fucking throws down. I'm looking at clips. Yeah. Like, she may be the sort of inspiration that Porkins needs. Like,
and look, we're talking. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, he's gonna look at her in the ring and be like, "Oh my god!" Like, not only is this person asserting her wants and her needs, but she's fucking snapping a dude's spine in half. Like, this is awesome. I could be the Awesome Kong of the Star Wars Rebel Alliance.
Oh my gosh. I didn't realize those guys kill.
Meredith,
I feel like we're talking about, shared interests. They both are fighters. That could be good.
Mm-hmm. And whereas, like, this is a very, like, stat max combo duo here. You have a close range fighter, someone who gets their hands dirty. And then you have someone who's more of a long range weapon kind of guy. So I could see them, like, really handing it to each other, where Porkins is off fighting a battle in space. Who's that running along the top of the Death Star and, fucking punching the exhaust port to death? But Awesome Kong. And when Awesome Kong is in the ring and she's in a headlock, who is that swooping in on a TIE fighter ready to blow off her opponent's head with a proton laser? It's goddamn Porkins. Like, they're the ultimate tag team.
That is so true.
Okay, so so this is how Porkins becomes not just a rebel pilot, but a rebel fighter. He becomes like a true, just like member of the Alliance who goes in and messes stuff up. He becomes the next Wedge Antilles, like a background fighter pilot who like is more present in books than anything on screen. Is that what we're talking about here?
Porkins goes full pretty boy. Like, he becomes the hero that America needs. He steps into the ring and he fucking kicks ass. Yes, I love this. This is the redemption story that Porkins always deserved.
Oh my god, and I totally see halfway through this relationship they wind up in a fight with a Rancor, like in one of those pits. It's the two of them having to wrestle a Rancor. And they
hell yeah.
They take it down. They don't have rocks or Jedi powers. They just have their bare knuckles, and they take down a Rancor.
Just throwing people's elbows on that bad boy. Oh my god. Can you imagine how sick that would be if you put in some Star Wars characters into the Worldwide Entertainment Federation, whatever it's called, ring? Jesus Christ. Pay-per-view would break. The service would no longer be viable.
Okay.
I'm into this.
I see it. I see it. I ship it. We've only got about 4 minutes left on our live broadcast, so like.
Oh god.
So we're gonna close out the or at least our live show with this one. If you want to hear more, be sure to listen on Ships in the Night, the podcast. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that in plugs in a moment. Do you guys think that these two make it? Awesome Kong, the wrestler, and Porkins? Do they make it? Does this last for years, days, months, decades? What do you think?
I think so. I mean, they're compatible. They have the same interests. They help each other. They support each other. Yes.
Yeah, this is the ultimate power couple. They are lovers both in and outside of the ring. I would absolutely love to see more diversity in the Star Wars universe. Awesome Kong, I think, could fit that very well. I think she'd make a kick-ass TIE fighter. Yeah, fuck it, man. I want to see this. I want Porkins to have his redemption in front of a Madison Square Garden sold-out arena on paper.
Yeah, I ship it. We only know a little bit about Awesome Kong, but my perusal of Wikipedia while we were live on the air, and what we've come up with here, I'm into it. I ship it. I ship it for for Porkins. Let's give Porkins some happy times. Meredith, what do you think?
I agree. I ship.
All right, I think we did it, guys.
We did it. We solved it.
The listeners coming through on this one.
Yeah, thank you, Shan, for like swooping in and saving us from probably some bad therapy years and like a Frasier-esque divorce problem if he has to go with Lilith Crane. I don't know why I suggested that, and now I'm poo-pooing it. But Meredith, thank you so much for joining us for this live special of Ships in the Night. If people want to find you on the interwebs, where can they go?
They can find me on Twitter at MEREIP and on Instagram at Meredith Paul. That's just my first name and last name, where I make funny videos. At least I think they're funny.
I checked out a few posted to your Twitter feed. They're all very good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. That's Greg Goodness.
Hey, everybody. You can find me on the tweets at Greg Goodness. You can also find me performing occasionally at the Pack Theater when it's not bubble wrapped under quarantine in beautiful, sunny Hollywood, California.
This is the Pack Theater, Greg. Don't you know you're on stage right now?
Oh, whoa. And speaking of which...
And hold on. Don't interrupt the plugs with more plugs. We could do those at the end.
Okay.
Give the Pack Theater a plug over me. I'll take my plugs first. Thank you very much. I'm Zach Wilson at that Zach Wilson. You can help out the Pack Theater, which is trying to stay alive through quarantine, which continues to be extended, which means no live shows or classes are able to take place. So great way that you can help out. Be sure to also Venmo the Pack Theater for donations, because that really does help the theater stay alive. And that's at Pack-Theater on Venmo. Huge way to help. Meredith, one more time, thank you so much for joining us. And
thank you for having me. This was so fun.
Yeah, stick around, guys.
I'm going to donate right now, people.
Hell yeah. You're the best. Thank you.
Bleep, bleep, bleep.
Thank you, Meredith. Guys, until next time, this has been Ships in the Night, casting off.